So why Dasharo? So we know these terms. So why Dasharo? First of all, full control over platform initialization source code. That's very important for some industries. Second, flexible pricing model. Typically, pricing models from IBVs are volume-based. Dasharo has no volume-based royalty fee pricing model. We trying to adjust our pricing models to given situation, to given case, to given vendor. Typically, we promote payment pay as you go. So you're just paying for the updates that you want, and initial port typically is one-time purchase. Source code always using open licenses. Of course, if customers don't want that, we can deal with that. It's possible to use also not open licenses, but we always promote open one. What this gives to customers, this gives no vendor lock-in. So you can always take the source code, find another consulting company who will maintain that code. You can teach your own or train your own engineers and ask community for support. You can and we typically use simple and widely adopted licenses like MIT or GPL v2. The code is easy to examine and is always reproducible, what means that we keep the industry standards of code quality. So let's say if we have UEFI, EDK2 coding guidelines or core boot coding guidelines, we always keep those guidelines, and we maintain tool chains for a long time that gives ability to reproduce the same build by hash every time. Even after a few years, you can take our tool chain and build all Dasharo firmware, and you will get the same hash. So that means over long run you can maintain and find the problems in the firmware. Reproducibility of the code is very important case, but I will not dive that deeper here. It can be whole presentation about how important it is. Full test results. Of course, we trying to do solid verification, and we have clearly defined the specification for generic tests, like generic Dasharo characteristics, for market segments, let's say workstation, servers, firewalls, and so on and so on. And we also support customer-specific tests. And always with every release of the firmware, we deliver that. This is not true for the typical firmware from independent BIOS vendor. Typically, we don't know what was tested, how was tested, and why it works. We always disclose software bill of materials, so we always inform where all the components of the firmware coming from. There is exact version of the open source code. There is exact version of the proprietary binaries like FSP or ME that coming from the silicon vendors. We always are very open and very clear about what's going in your firmware and what kind of components going there. Then production quality ecosystem. We doing that for many customers. So we build the professional machinery which can handle the whole process of the production of the binaries, and we can do that with high quality and in repeatable manner. And finally, long-term support. The problem with typical IBV support is that they just drop support after 2 years or something. They release maybe once in a year a new binary. In our case, this is not the situation, because on one side the code is open, so that means anyone can support it. So for example, we can run a crowdfunding campaign even if the vendor is not interested about new firmware releases. So let's say community coming to us saying like, this is big problem with that platform, we need that fix, and then we can run crowdfunding campaign and sponsor this given fix, and publish that, release the binaries. We can do multi-party sponsoring. So let's say on given new platform, Intel Tiger Lake, we have a bunch of builds, and then we can simply share the support across the vendors that use that build, that use that Dasharo version.